Hello, everybody. I'm here to talk to you all today about something that we all generally understand, that we've not reached equality. We've not reached an equal encouragement system for every person. We've not done any of this yet. Saying yet creates a goal for us to strive for. And that's what I want to talk about, the way we can reach that goal. By having courageous conversations when we're faced with something that makes us uncomfortable, but also makes us realize that we have yet to improve, so that we can reach that goal that saying yet set us up for. In everyday conversations, in real life and online, there's a general assumption that we've reached a point where there's representation of genders, races, and identities everywhere. And so we're set. The problem is we're not. As one of my most favorite people to quote, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, said, in response to the question, "When will there be enough women in the court?" She responded, "When there are 9. We are seeing progress, though. From the first Muslim woman elected to Congress, to the craze of the first major Hollywood studio to feature a majority Asian American cast in almost 20 years. These steps are being celebrated. But then they're forgotten, as we assume that the problem ends with one success story. I myself also faced the question of, is there really a problem? In middle school, we had a presentation done by women engineers from 3M. I was confused because only the girls from my class were going to watch this presentation. They gave us a whole talk about what it means to be a woman engineer in this time, and I didn't see the purpose in it. There were girls in all of my classes, and I never felt isolated as a girl pursuing a STEM career. Until then, I'd never even had a conversation about the fact that I was a minority in more than one way. Fast forward to high school, and I'm sitting down in my elective physics class of about 30 kids. As I look around, I realize I'm one of 6 girls in the class, total. That was my realization moment. And I was lucky to have such an experience so that I could grow from there. I've met many others who have not, just because they've not been made aware of the issue. But even those who have assume that because there's already 6 girls sitting in the classroom, that the problem's been addressed, and there's nothing more to talk about. I see that when I or people in a similar situation as me go to speak up about this imbalance, that there's this wall of opinions that rises to convince us that we're making a mountain out of a molehill, or that we can't take a joke. In other words, we're being dismissed. And we're spending so much time dismissing each other's opinions that we end up in the circular flow where we're aggravating the problem by ignoring the problem. And it's this circular flow that we have yet to break out of. But we still can. How? Courageous conversations. But what does that mean? Let's break it down. Courageous. The ability to have the mental or moral capacity to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. But talking isn't scary, right? Especially when you have to share your own beliefs. I mean, even for myself, when I was faced with insensitive comments, I would respond with angry confrontation. But the thing is, angry confrontation or angry rants online are missing the second half of the solution, the actual scary part. Conversation. An exchange of sentiments, observations, opinions, or ideas. See, the important thing here is that the sharing of beliefs happens through conversations, not arguments. You know when you have an argument, and then 2 hours later, you're thinking about it and you're like, that would have been such a good comeback. That's because in an argument, both sides are in a constant state of fluster. In a conversation, there's a flow of ideas back and forth, not attacks that need to be defended, so that the actual problem is not being discussed and a solution is never found. But the way you make these conversations courageous is not by having them with people who generally agree with you. That's great for solidifying your beliefs. But to take the next step forward, you need to be willing to share your ideas with people who don't generally agree with you. And on the flip side, be willing to listen to what they have to say, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Listening is where we find the secret to the solution. But how do you listen effectively? It starts with not dismissing what other people have to say. And going into this conversation, being willing to hear something that might upset you or that you might dislike. But from that, making sure that you don't let your emotions take over and break that flow of the conversation. Instead, think about what's going through the other person's mind. What may they be thinking that's having them speak along those lines? You have to empathize while you listen. This is the way that we should be having conversations in our classrooms, in the workplace, with our friends and family. These are the conversations that are not at the forefront of what we discuss, but should and still can be. Just the other day, I saw this effectively come into play. Someone who I now consider my friend used to be someone who their insensitive comments, I would meet with that angry confrontation, and it never went through smoothly. But once I decided to change my approach and think about how their jokes were just made because they didn't understand my perspective and I couldn't understand theirs fully either. Once I changed the way I was approaching the conversation, we were able to come to a productive conversation. And recently, I actually saw them in one of the capstone experiences of our time in high school talk about how they valued inclusivity and interacting with a diverse community. All of us as individuals should look for the opportunity to have these kind of conversations so that eventually we aren't celebrating every first, but just recognizing that there's representation in every aspect of our lives. So that eventually a girl pursuing a STEM career doesn't suddenly find herself in the minority. So that eventually we are reaching that goal that we set ourselves up for. So guys, let's start having some courageous conversations. Thank you.